Come in, Ocean Sailor. Come in, Ocean Sailor.
The Ocean Sailor Podcast. Brought to you by Ocean Sailor Magazine and Kraken Yachts.
Well, welcome to Ocean Sailor Podcast. This is number 12, no less. And of course, we're going to be hearing part 2 of what makes a blue water yacht with the Sailing Millennial Falcon team of Adam and Khiara. I think you did the interview, of course, on this one, Dick, because I was away. Is that right?
Yeah, you was off sailing, and I wanted to grab hold of Adam and Khiara and try and have a good chat with them. We spoke a hell of a lot about these very questions, and of course, John Kretschmer, who actually suggested to Adam and Khiara that they come and do that interview with me.
Right.
Which started the whole Millennial Falcon videos thing going, which all in the end went totally crazy. And I wanted to get hold of him and cover a bit of ground that we hadn't really, I thought, covered. And also I wanted to have a good chat with them because I find them a very, very inspiring couple, you know. I think they... You know, the way their openness, the way they sort of their attitude, can-do attitude carries through, and I feel that they're doing a really good job and encouraging a lot of people to get out there, go sailing, and give it a go. So I wanted to just understand a little bit about the background of what motivate them to get into it. So I do hope you enjoy it, Dick.
Oh well, well. Let's hear them then. I'm looking forward to this, Dick, because I, of course, heard the first part, which was very good. He's an endearing character, Adam, and of course she is as well. She's full of life, the girl, isn't she? So that's nice. Let's hear it.
I'm going to ask you: have you spoke to anybody? It's a tricky one, this. But have you spoke to anybody that's actually tried to justify the decision they've made about going across an ocean with a yacht with a bolt on keel and all that?
No one. Well, we mostly it's like we cop grief for saying, you know, things like the words plastic fantastic, which, you know, I shouldn't be quite so derogatory because these are people's homes we're talking about. But generally the defense or the aggro we get is that, well, I did it, you know. It's that old chestnut. It's like, I did it, and so it can do it, and therefore it deserves the title.
They'll say that, you know, like a few people we've spoken to, they'll kind of say it's downsides. You know, like, oh, the hull slapped all the way, so we had to slow down, but it's got us here in one piece.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
No one's ever made a technical, referenceable, sort of scientific engineering-based example of why it's better, you know, like about the only thing that remotely nudges that is, well, I'm so fast with my perfectly round hull, I can outrun the weather.
Yeah,
that's about the only remotely, and that's ridiculous. I don't believe that for a second.
It's a price.
Yeah, I mean, it happens that I had a really good guy do some work on the hydraulics of White Dragon when I was in Cape Town, and I'm going to plug the name of the company. The company there is called Petec, and they did a fantastic job for me. They're great people. And they are involved in doing hydraulics, mostly in Cape Town fishing vessels that are going to the deep Antarctic. So this is proper, you know, it's got proper gear. And the guy that was working for him did the work on my boat, understood sailing. And I've been bashing on probably for about 2 or 3 weeks, telling him all about everything that's wrong with boats with bolt-on keels and blade hung rudders, and the normal soapbox I must admit, tend to get on. And this Dave suddenly he said to me, oh, you know, I said, so what are you up to sailing wise, Dave? He said, oh, well, actually I'm sailing to the ABC Islands in you know, Carriacou and what is it, Bonaire and
Curacao, Bonaire, and
Aruba.
Aruba,
Bonaire,
sorry,
and Curacao.
yeah. And I said, oh, really? I said, what boat are you going in? He said, oh, I'm going in my, well, anyway, it's a 46, associated company with the one I mentioned earlier. was a Beneteau 46. I might as well say it, might not. And and he said,
You can bleep it out later.
and I said, really? I said, oh, Dave, yeah, that's a long way. It's like 6,500, 7,000 miles sail. That. I said, doesn't that worry you? The vulnerability of that. He said, no, Dick. I said, really? It doesn't. He said, no. I said, how come? He said, it'll never happen to me. And there you go, bang, in one go. And he was joking, but he just said it never happened to me. But the point of the matter is, and of course people will get across oceans in production boats. Of course they will.
Yeah.
The point is that it is all out there just a numbers game. And the numbers, you keep doing it time after time after time, sailing all through your life, crossing oceans, racking up the miles. I'll tell you what, your number comes in because there's one storm that's got its name written on you, and you just need to be, better than fit and ready for it when it comes down your throat or other circumstances, things you hear. And that's the bit that for me is all ultra serious. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because, of course you don't expect people to suddenly say, oh, well, yeah, really, I know it's not up standard. Most people are not going to do that. They're going to form some form of defence. But as I say, unfortunately, till now, really, it's been supported by the industry. As I say, I'm going back on them again. Category A, RCD, Category A. Get your act together, do something different.
I was just laughing as you said that because you said, oh, it's got to happen at some stage or other. You can only what do you say? You can only count too many times. Was it? It can only your number's up. Your number will eventually be up.
Eventually, yeah.
And I was laughing because when we first bought our boat, we put it down in the water in a canal system in near Fort Lauderdale in Placida, and first day off the yard, our number was up. We went smash bang into some kind of submerged object under the water. I have no idea.
In the canal?
But
in the canal?
In the canal.
We were 3 miles from the slings.
Wow.
It was about 3 hours from when we left the slings.
No.
And our number was up. Our number was up straight then. And we didn't actually end up checking we couldn't check what hit us.
This is alligator infested brackish canals,
Yes.
might I add. So nobody was going to get in and have a look at the keel.
We immediately went downstairs, made sure we don't have any bolts on our keel, obviously. So we were like, okay, we're not leaking. Well, that's great. And then we continued to sail about 1,000 miles, a couple of 100 miles at that stage, over to Bahamas, where the water was clearer. And this must have been about a month later. We were finally actually able to look at this damage that was on our keel. And it was like this big chunk was taken out of it. I have no idea what it was. But it just goes to show that, like, sure, you can dodge it however many times, but
this was in 8 feet of
it's
water.
gonna happen.
Like, there's those who have run aground and those who have lied about it. Like, if you do it long enough, whether it's on day 1 or day 365, however long you need to do it, it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, well, funny enough,
exactly. Same with weather.
I've never run aground once. I've run aground
then
at
you're
least
lying
15
about
times.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, it's it's you hear all of this stuff, and you must be a terrible navigator if you run aground, and come on, it's not. It's just go and try and sail across the sandbanks in the Thames and see it, and they're all moving, and see if you can manage to thread your way, and of course charts change, and large parts of the world you guys want to go and explore, I'm sure, is uncharted or largely uncharted. So I mean,
the places where we want to go, like one day we have aspirations to go around Cape Horn because we built the boat to do that. Sorry, we didn't build the boat. We got the boat to do that. So why the hell not?
Yeah.
And but those charts were surveyed in the 1700s. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so you just don't know what's there now. What cliffs have broken down in that time? How good were their surveyings then? What's changed?
And that's what's below the surface. Then there's the question of like logs, containers, fish attraction devices. There's so much crap falling in the ocean every day, and it's not getting smaller.
Yeah.
So You just
Well,
can't,
on the boat I
yeah.
told you
It
about,
makes perfect sense.
on the boat I told you about, Moonshadow. Well, actually, we've got some similarities here because, you know, on your first inaugural day on board, you've gone slamming into some obstruction in a canal, so you didn't even get past day one by the sounds of it. My goodness, it's me saying about, you know, eventually your numbers came in. It came in before it got to one. That's pretty good going. But
Exactly.
on my maiden cruise from Hong Kong to the Philippines, 300 miles out from Hong Kong, actually in flat calm, but at 10 o'clock at night, we suddenly slammed into something massively hard. We're in 2,000 metres of water or something. And, you know, we were having dinner, so everybody's up on deck. My God, one guy went and got the big torch I carry, shone it in the water just to see this 40-foot teak log by 8-foot thick drift past us. And we were in a raft of about 4 or 5 of them that we saw. And my brand spanking new, beautiful boat,
no.
Moonshadow, had all of the gel coats smashed off of the bow. I went over the bow in a boatswain's chair with a chisel to my new boat. Because obviously I thought we had to sink. It was 8 knots to stop, bang, and I thought this must have smashed the bow in, and it didn't, because thankfully, as you know, and as your boat is testimony to, after 40 years and one half a day with you two. You know, the boat, the boat took it, and I called guy's name was Basil Lynn at Tayana, Tayang, company that built Tayana, and I asked him, you know, hey Basil, I've hit, you know, when I eventually got to Subic in the Philippines, hey Basil, you know, this is what's happened, I've hit this, and I said to him, you know, so how thick is the gel coat? How thick is the layup at the bow? And he said, oh yeah, about 12 inches. And I thought, oh well, he hasn't understood. He's you know, Taiwanese hasn't understood what I meant. So I said, no, yeah, the layup. He said, yeah, underneath the anchor chain, it's solid glass, because that's where we know you'll hit things. That was a little one that went in my book. I can tell you. Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
See, that brings up another thing that I think is sort of pertinent to all of this talk about boats these days, and that's like the rise of the aluminium boats. And what I think's happened is that people, you know, they go, I want a boat and I want to go everywhere and I want to be able to, I want to be safe-ish if I hit something, right? But I don't want to go 40 years back. I don't want an old boat. I want a new boat. So then they look at what's out there and they go, well, that's not going to hold up, because, you know, we all know enough about them. And so the assumption is that, well, fiberglass is weak. You'll never be as strong as aluminium. What they leave out is that 5mm fiberglass is weak compared to aluminium, but 20mm fiberglass lined with Kevlar or 12 inches of solid glass is plenty. It's absolutely fine, if not better.
They don't make the base of Chieftain tanks out of aluminium or even steel. They make it out of composite material, and that's because it's much, much stronger, and that will take an exploding shell. And that's what you've just said is true. You know, if you go back to, I know because it happened that when I was building my boat, White Dragon, which was built by Tayang, it happened that they were doing a repair on a lagoon. I don't remember the size of it. Cat there. And the owner, Peter Chen, guy's name was, came to me and said, Dick, come and have a look at this through hole we've just taken out. And honestly, it wasn't 5mm. It was less than 5mm. The skin was less than 5mm. And so rightly, aluminium, as you just said, Adam, you know, aluminium, 5mm or 6mm aluminium, yeah, of course it's going to be stronger than 3 or 4mm, 5mm, 6mm fiberglass. But that's not actually the choice. That's not the full range of choices. A much better system is to get a composite engineer, and we use a guy called Pete Lawson, in New Zealand to say, right, we want the full specification of a boat, XYZ length, XYZ breadth, and it's got to be bomb-proof. And when you came over, I took you up to the yard, of course, and showed you the boat that's in build there, and it's like a battleship, and it should be. Yeah. That's the game. That's what it should be, because you've got to stop thinking. Well, there's two things. There's two dynamics going on here. First is we need to build it light and have a lot of form stability so it's fast and it wins races. And second, if we don't use much materials, it's cheap. And if you get caught with either one of those in a situation where you now need strength, you haven't got it. You just obviously haven't got it. I mean, you can ask anybody. You don't know about that YouTube video of the lagoon, which is now, corkscrewing its way across the sea. You ask anybody that's going out in a production boat that goes upwind, and you say to them, how did the lockers in the fore cabin get on? Everybody laughs. Oh, yeah, they all sprung open. Well, and that's taken as acceptable somehow.
Yeah.
And hey, let's come back to it. It's all fine as long as you say what I consider to be coastal. And
stay in your lane.
Really, stay in the lane. And listen, I want to move on to something else because I have been monstrously jealous of the fantastic traction you guys have had in such a short period of time. And I know you've got, I think, 75,000 subscribers to your channel in a fairly short period of time. I've been bashing away with Ocean Sailor over 2 years, just over 2 years, so just about 2 years now. And we've now got 6,000 subscribers across about 140 countries now, which we're very proud of. And of course,
that's very good.
It goes exponential, right? It's not linear, so you're further ahead than you think you are.
Yeah, well, we've noticed actually particularly in the last kind of 6 weeks, the memberships and the subscriptions. It's a free magazine, but the subscriptions are now racking up much quicker, and so that's great.
Okay.
But you've found a medium that really has worked for you to get your young story across, and you've brought a breath of fresh air into an industry that can be a bit old and stale. And you've kind of come into it and gone, look, hey, it can be like this, guys. We're having a lot of fun. And so where does that go now, do you think?
Well, look, we weren't the first people to do it.
I don't know. I mean, like Khiara just said, we're not the first people to do it. We certainly haven't invented anything. But I think we've all got our styles and we've all got our passions. And for me, I hear. Well, let me start from the beginning. When it started, we were just telling our story, and that was enough, because we just threw caution to the wind, got after it, made some educated decisions that actually paid dividends, and we had a lot of calamity ensue, and we managed to muddle our way through, and we learned a ton, and that was the value that we could provide at the time, just entertainment and lessons.
Your point first.
Just let me ask, when you started doing that, was that for fun at the beginning? Did you think right at the beginning, hey, look, here's a medium, we can build it up to something much bigger? Were you focused on that? I mean, you guys, I've seen you working, and you put a very, very professional application together with how you do, and the interaction between you two is very, very nice to watch, and you get the message over. And as you've said, Adam, if you're not managing to get the message over, you just bring Khiara on, and everybody goes, "Oh yeah, I'll listen to that. That's great. I'll listen."
Exactly.
To that. If they stop listening to me, we're like, brief intermission.
I'll do an old dance.
Right. Back. Pay attention.
But did you start thinking, hey, look, we could build this up into or was it just fun?
I think initially, so we started actually filming like straight off the bat prior to us buying the boat, us boat searching. But it was about 5 months in that we were kind of thinking, oh yeah, we might do something. Haven't really done anything with like 5 months of footage. And we went back home to visit family where we had Wi-Fi, where we had non-stop power, and we were like, okay, well, you know what? If it's not now, then it's never. So why the hell not? I mean, why have we been filming all this stuff for just no reason? So we actually didn't start with the thought of we want to have a successful YouTube channel and all that stuff. Like, we'd already saved up 2 years worth of saving. So we'd already saved up to be able to be sailing for 2 years. So we knew that if all YouTube things failed, then that's fine. We didn't have to rely on it. And we're perfectly happy to just go back home, save up a bit more money, come back out sailing and just do that, which is what a lot of people do who we've met along the way.
Yeah.
So we didn't initially think, and I don't think anybody should really think, you're going to go out there and become like an instant success on YouTube or a millionaire automatically. You know, you need to kind of build up to it.
Are we
and
millionaires?
Are
we millionaires?
No, we're not, you know.
I don't look at the books, so I wouldn't know. Well, we never. Yeah, you can't count on it, and we thought we'd just document everything. And in a way, we bought a GoPro, right? The cheapest original GoPro, and we did a charter holiday as a sort of a training run for ourselves. It was 10 days in the Whitsundays, and if we got through that, well, we obviously can do this and we enjoy it.
Learned a lot, absolutely invaluable, and I'd say anybody should do that if they're thinking about sailing.
And we recorded that as a bit of a fun exercise on this new GoPro, and it was actually quite fun, and we got a real chuffed when we came home and showed it to our family, and it was just genuinely a beautiful thing to make a video about. So then we said, well, let's just keep doing that. Hey, so when we go, we started picking up the camera and say, it's almost like you're talking to mum and dad at home. And it became a little bit cathartic after a while.
Yeah, I get that. I can understand that. Yeah.
It's a weird way of turning a frown upside down when you're like, oh, we've missed the bus. So you pull out the camera and you're like, you'll never guess what's just happened. And you start telling the story.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like it's not all for naught and you're not just getting stuffed around.
Yeah.
And then 6 months went by and we made some videos and we put them out there and they were pretty well received.
Because what you've done, as I understand it, when we were talking, you were laughing, because I can't claim to be, a great. I'm not going to claim to be any form of a guru on social media. quite the opposite, unfortunately. But what you've done is you've kind of filmed it warts and all, haven't you? You've
definitely.
I mean,
exactly.
People often wouldn't want to certainly document their screw ups and their mistakes and their their setbacks and their tears and their anguish, but I think you have done exactly that. You've gone, it's not a picnic all the time. I want to go home and right or not?
No, absolutely. Right. You
In
don't
fact,
win any points by being like superhuman and never getting anything wrong, because that just puts the people's dream of cruising around the world further away from being achievable, and that's the last thing we ever want anyone to think. In actual fact, our goal is to be extraordinarily ordinary, and just so that if we can do it, anyone can do it. All you have to do is just not give up.
And we have received messages. Oh, well, I have cried and have filmed myself crying, which now I fully regret every time I see that horrendous thumbnail of me in tears. But we have received messages from people saying something similar along the lines of, I used to watch all these channels and just thought, how am I ever going to get started sailing if that's, if it's meant to be. Well, how am I ever going to learn if every day is perfect and these people just look perfect when they're sailing and nothing ever goes wrong? How am I ever going to learn to be at that stage? And then they'll look at our videos and be like, okay, well, we can see that they're learning, they're failing, they're having mistakes, and they've learnt off them. And slowly, they're starting to get to the stage of what these other YouTube channels look like, where they're constant, their days are constantly perfect, they're constantly sailing in perfect weather, they're doing all these things because they're hiding all the issues that actually happen on sailboats. Things break,
Yeah.
You bump into things.
As you know, and I was telling you, it's not something that you can flag up too strongly, but certainly my experience has been, and I've told people, that, yeah, just before you think what it is all about is sailing off to find the next perfect palm tree fringed bay to have a gin and tonic in. Actually, what you're going to be doing is sailing around the world, working out where you can fix your boat best next.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
and you get this. I can remember arrived in Kota Kinabalu, and there was a luxury pool there, and it was a big hotel, and there's a real quite nice marina, and you know, and beautiful tropical surroundings, and it was all lovely. And I got off the boat, walked down to the office, and I said, "Where's the nearest big hardware shop?" And the guy said,
Yeah, it's totally right, isn't it?
"What?" And he said, no, where can I go? I need to get some drill bits. I need to get this, and I need to get that. And he said, and I could see the guy's not got it at all. Well, not, just shaking his head. He thinks I'm going to ask him if I can go and use the pool or where the restaurants are and all the rest of it. And then I rocked up in this Chinese emporium which is a big tool shop. It's like Christmas. All the gear I couldn't get. And hey, look, they've got, yeah, I'll have that. And there's no question
that's exactly
that is,
like us.
That's what you do, and I mean, and your videos have shown that, and have shown the reality, the unvarnished, the unvarnished truth. And let me then go. Obviously, I know that your physios are all out there for people to use free of charge, but at the same stage, I believe you've been really well supported by some of your subscribers. Some of your viewers have gone one step further, unsolicited, I think, in general by you. It's not something that I've seen you saying, please help us. But at the same stage, a lot of people have tried to do the right thing, and they've enjoyed your videos, and they've clicked onto Patreon. Is it? I don't know these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
And that's building up and giving you the chance, to keep doing that and keep entertaining people and telling them the truth. Good on you.
Yeah.
I really think that's fantastic.
And I think a lot of our patrons as well, they either some of them are people who are learning to sail, families who want to kind of go out there and they're just like, oh, I wouldn't mind like a little bit of support, or they and then others who also just enjoy seeing the calamity unfold. But I guess a lot of them are like, a lot of them are just like, well, what shall I do if what kind of boat are you after? And because they're close to us, they're our patrons, and we're happy to answer any and all questions. We now form a relationship with a lot of them where Adam's always on the phone, hour-long conversations about, now what boat are you checking out tomorrow, while they're boat searching, and he's helping them, going on, okay, now just remember that you might need to check this part of it, and giving them advice on what boats to buy and how to,
it's a real fringe benefit. It's quite cool.
I could see it. Well, hey, I'm going to interrupt you here, and I'm going to tell you, back in the day, we were talking about me back in the day and being your age and deciding I'm going to, because I didn't have the means otherwise, so I'm going to start building a boat. But I tell you, there were dozens of books. There was a great couple called the Hiscocks, and they wrote a whole series of books about the wonderful experiences they had, warts and all. And they had a book called Come Aboard. Come Aboard. And, and I mean, I'm talking 40, 50 years ago, and, everybody aspired to be them. They'd written books to fund their route and their onward passage.
Got to check them out.
Yeah. But there were dozens of books about every element of yacht building. What did you really need, and all the rest of it. But they're not there.
Yeah.
People, I do know, because I've talked to a guy that's sailed with me a short distance down the east coast of Australia. He came with us. We bumped into it, but not literally. We bumped into, we're anchored in the same bay, and he came over to Moonshadow, and then he said, "Oh wow, a real cruising boat. I'd love to sail a boat like this." And we were going to Mackay on the east coast, both going there. I said, "Well, if you're leaving your boat there and you want to go, come back, you come as crew." And so I got to talk to him a fair bit, and I was shocked that he bought, it was a 46-foot journo, and he clearly didn't have a lot of sailing experience. And I said to him, one evening as we were sitting, sailing down the coast, I said, "I'm intrigued. How did you come to the decision about what was the right boat for you?" And he said, "Well, I went to Sydney Boat Show and I went to see this one, and so I picked the one that I thought was right." I said, "Based on what?" He said, "Well, obviously ask the salesman loads of questions." And you think, oh God, you're asking the wrong guy, somebody with a vested interest. And
Exactly,
Yeah.
vested interest.
vested interest, and that was his selection process. And I thought how mental that was. I mean, I really thought that is completely bonkers. But then I thought, well, actually, the books that I relied on and I got my knowledge from, and the people that there was more, probably I think more of a sailing community. There were less boats, but there was more of a sailing community, back in that day than there is now. And I think and I thought to myself, well, I don't know where these people get their advice from, actually. You're thinking about it, well, yeah, I suppose they've got to get it from boat show salesmen. And hopefully you're the answer to that. They can, tune in, listen to you, and, you can give them that unbiased advice, and I know you are doing. So listen, there's one thing I want to ask you, Adam. Khiara's just telling us about video shots that she bared her soul with her crying and tears rolling down her face. Just how much hate mail did you get as a result of that?
Most people were pretty sympathetic. Well,
pretty much.
Would
that's
you like
usual
to tell the
standards.
story, or should I tell the story?
You can tell the story.
You brought it on yourself, and I did definitely cop flack. But so for context, the story was that this is when we were pulling up our teak decks, and I was downstairs working on the propeller. And Khiara, it's sort of a one-person job. There wasn't much to do, So she was like, "I'm going to go upstairs and keep ripping up teak." And I said, "Look, unless we can get up there and clean away all the goop and seal all the screw holes, don't rip up any more than you can fill in a day. Because if it rains and you've done more than you can fill, it's just a disaster."
Oh.
What happens?
Oh no!
I took up more than I can fill.
Somebody got a bit overzealous. Points for enthusiasm.
While I was at it, I may as well have.
and it's piss and rain, and we're running for the tarpaulins and anything we can find, and it's just we're not keeping the water out. And obviously somebody got a bit upset. And I definitely copped grief for filming the incident, but I felt, we always regret when we don't film things. For us, you can always cut it away in the editing suite. And if you're going to tell a story, tell the whole story. And if Khiara decided later, she's like, "I'm not comfortable with that," we could have cut it out. So it's not really me exposing a side of her. Like we all get to sign off on the final product. And I think
The grief,
the grief that I copped was actually...
So, Khiara, this is the cover story you've both agreed to divert from the fact that Adam was the one that really upset you. Because I've got to tell you guys, my little experience of podcasting and YouTube videoing, oh my God, you do open the floodgates. You stick your head above the parapet, and there's so many guns firing at your direction with so many bloody experts that you can't take it to heart, can you? Because I do fire back, and silly really, because I'm just going.
You're very good.
But you can't really, can you? Just got to let it go and really realise that you're pleasing. I imagine this is your attitude. you please most of the people most of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time, and that's a certainty, isn't it?
That's
Exactly.
it. You have to look at it like
Yeah.
a numbers game, because the unfortunate, I could go on for hours about the gripes I have with YouTube, but they don't do a very good job protecting the creators from trolls, and so we have to, everyone knows where we are, what we're doing, warts and all, as you say, but we get almost no information about them, and the only way I can basically protect myself is to block them, but they have to get me in the ribs bad enough to warrant that response at least once, and that's fine. But if you extrapolate that to a couple of hundred a week of comments, you might cop 3 or 4 chips in the ribs every week, and sometimes you carry them around for a while. It takes a long time to build up a thick skin, and
then when you think you do have a thick skin, sometimes you get another one, you're like,
oh, that got me where I thought I was safe.
It takes a bit of a thick skin to do it.
It's a bit of a sad indictment on humanity in its current state, isn't it? That there seems to be people out there whose entire reason for being is to try and cause upset and disharmony and just demand. I mean, when you listen to what goes down with some, real celebrities, and especially the younger ones, and obviously there's names that, spring to mind, people that couldn't deal with that load, and you realise that there's people out there that are so totally merciless that they will just carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on until they've brought you, to your knees, it would seem, and then that seems to be giving them some form of satisfaction. It's a bit hard to deal with. I think you've done. I don't. I just go into a corner and start swearing and shouting and telling, but every time I've responded, I've pretty well, regretted it, really, because I realise, you just,
you poured gas on the fire.
you just saluted, mistake, you just saluted.
Exactly.
And
and you'll get yourself riled up for hours afterwards, thinking, I should have said this, and maybe what's he going to write back, constantly checking. And instead we've just learned, okay, if you just get rid of it, if you just block it, then that's the end of it. Or for us, we try and write back politely and just say something like...
That's a fun game, if you can turn them around.
With actual facts as to how and why we said it.
Be nice to people that are being nasty. That's a technique, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm no good at that. I can't tell you I'm going to win. No, I'm not going to win that one. So anyway, perhaps we'll leave that one. And then, of course, we had a really, really wonderful time out sailing on the new Kraken 50, Sophie Marie. We went off around the whole of the Marmara, and we were so lucky because we had every wind from every direction. And had a truly fantastic time. But the thing I want to say to you, and again, I sound like I'm being very sycophantic here, but keep doing it, because what actually happened, you phoned me up. I'd like to let the listeners know. You phoned me up and said, "Hey, Dick, our friend John Kreshman has told us to come and talk to you about blue water yachts." I was on my way to Turkey. A few days, 2 or 3 days later, and I said to you, well, yeah, okay, that's going to work, but it'll have to be quick. How about the day after tomorrow? Of course, what you normally get is, oh, well, hang on, I'll have to look at my diary and work out this, and and then you get statements like, oh yeah, I'd really like to do that, which doesn't tell you anything.
But
and you didn't. You went, oh yeah, all right then. I thought, God, that's good. Actually, yeah, good. It's like, it's not. I didn't just invite you to a barbecue when you're around the corner. You were in Ponta Delgado, and the next thing I know, you're knocking on my front door, the little cottage I bought down in Old Lee, the fisherman's cottage, and then of course, even better still, the owner was a few days late in wanting to pick his boat up, thanks to the COVID situation and everything else. And so we had a few more days with Sophie Marie than we thought we were going to have. So I and I was doing this 400. We were doing this 400 to 500 mile sea trial, livable sea trial that we do with all the boats, which shows up massive difference from just twice around the bay and all that stuff. Of course, I phoned you up and said, look, it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know, if you're at a loose end, you'd have to be here in 4 days' time. But you can, if you fancy it, come on a sail around, around the Marmara Sea on the new Kraken 50. And you did that as well.
For us, we were like...
I mean, who's going to say no to that, right?
Exactly. I think Adam initially, straight off the bat, before he even messaged you, we were like talking, before we'd even arrived in the Azores, Adam was saying that he was like, oh, when we get to the Mediterranean, you know what boatyard's there? You know what boatyard's there? It's Kraken. They're in Turkey. So maybe if we sail up there, yeah, if we can get that far, do you think they might let me like walk on one of their boats or something, or like go around the yard? And I was like, oh, come on, Adam, that's a little bit wishful thinking there. I don't think boat builders really like let you actually walk around and film and do all that stuff. And then a month later we arrived in the Azores, and that's when Adam messaged you and said, oh hey, do you want to just do an interview? And I certainly didn't expect for it to progress to the stage where we're actually going on a sail in a Kraken. And how can you say no to that when like months before we were just dreaming about even being able to walk around the yard or see one?
And it is
can't
like,
say no.
It is my dream boat. I know you build them, but it is like John. Like we get asked this question all the time: what would you buy if money was no object? And we've tried really hard. And any answer that I give needs to be defensible, because obviously, as we've discussed, I've made my position fairly clear about my criteria. So if I come back with something that sort of contradicts that, then it's a problem. And so we really struggled to find a boat that met all of the criteria
for the millions of dollars that people hypothetically said, what would you buy the boat for?
Yeah, and we could have found a bunch of boats that ticked like 2 out of 3 maybe, but no one did all of them. And then I was talking to John about this in Bermuda when we caught up briefly, and he said, because he has the same issue, and he told me about the Kraken, and then I looked it up. I was like, ooh. And then I started looking up the company. I was like, I wonder if I could, because it answers the question, literally the $1 million question for us. It answers that. It is the boat that ticks all the boxes for me, and it is probably the boat I would buy if I had $1 million.
Definitely, I think that's number one of our list.
You'd have to have €1 million, by the way, not dollars.
Damn it!
But actually,
same.
No. I mean,
people were asking hypothetical if you had unlimited money. I think they said, and if you had 100,
I'll have 3.
Yeah, if you had 100 million, and we're like,
really?
Jesus, can I just buy $1 million yacht and just like save the rest?
Yeah, that was our answer actually. To be honest, before we found Kraken, the answer that we put out on YouTube was, you know what? I would actually probably go back and I'd buy like a Tazwell 49 or something, like a bigger, older boat. I'd put another $100,000 into it to make it as good as I want it to be, and I'd bank the rest, because I can't see anything that's worth out there today. I can't see anything that's worth that really is going to tick all my boxes.
How bad is that?
I guess, that's very, very kind words. And, that was my entire motivation for starting Kraken. I, had quite a successful life in business and I was, and think I am retired. But I'm not very, I'm not very good at that, I realise. And,
After the last week, I don't think so.
I just heard so many bonkers things told to me. I spoke to a yacht designer one time, and she remained nameless. And he said, well, we'd like to draw some boats for you. So I said, oh yeah, okay, well that's very interesting. And he said, but there's a couple of things, we don't really agree with you about full skeg rudders and unbalanced rudders. So I said, well, no, that's kind of mandatory, really. That's the second on the list of absolute criteria that it must have. He said, no, it doesn't really need to be that anymore. There are materials. I said, no, look, don't tell me that. I'm the one that's been stuck on a reef in northern Indonesia. Just don't give me all that. And what he said was, well, what we could do, you don't really need what you think you need. we could make the bottom half of the rudder break away if it was on a reef. So I said,
Oh, no.
Yeah, true.
How's that help anyone?
Yeah, and well, so I said to him, so my great sales pitch is going to be not that this boat will take everything that's thrown at it, but actually, if you get stuck and it's a bit difficult, bottom half the rudder's going to break off. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, if you get the balance of the boat right, and you'll notice, if you get the balance of the boat right, you haven't got a tremendously heavy helm. You've got a helm that you feel what's going on. And there's the question. Why is it so important to have a fingertip steering, that's so light you can steer with your... Yeah. Why does that matter? You've got two arms, for God's sake. Steer the boat, feel what you've got. That will teach you about how to balance your boat and set your sails. Because you don't, if you don't do a good job, of course the boat goes out of balance, and now she's, trying to pull hard to wind or broach or something, and then all of those things. So you do balance the boat, and I just found there was, and this particular guy said to me, well, like we're designers, and I said, I'll tell you what I'll do with you. You stand me in a room with 30 designers telling me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'll tell you every reef and every situation and every storm that I went to that brought me to those conclusions. And that's why I started Kraken, and to build, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I am certain of this, to build the ultimate blue water cruising yacht. And she's there alongside, as you saw earlier out the window, and you took a lovely tour around the Marmara Sea. So I'm very happy that you had such a positive experience with us. And yeah,
thank you so much.
I'm sure
for inviting us.
Yeah, I'm sure, guys, we're going to spend lots more time together over time. We have a kindred spirit. Maybe I'll eventually get John to answer his phone, and we can all get together and sit around and have a few beers and tell ourselves.
Maybe we'll corner kits on.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we should do that. It'd be great to do that. But it's been fantastic, and I want to tell the listeners that your story, the Millennial Falcon story, is features in Ocean Sailor magazine under Sailor's Story. This month it's out now. And where do the listeners find about you and your YouTube channel? You tell them.
You can find us if you simply search Sailing Millennial Falcon on YouTube or Google. I hope we'll be the first thing that come up, and I'm pretty sure we are. Otherwise, you can get us at sailingmillennialfalcon.com and follow the bouncing ball from there. And if you really, really like us, you can find us at Sailing Millennial Falcon. No, what's our patron?
Sailing Millennial Falcon on Patreon.
On Patreon,
yeah. But it's Millennial, because we're millennials, not Millennium, although we are Star Wars fans too.
Is that what I said?
There was, yeah.
I told Dick off for saying that.
Did you say Millennium? Oh,
no, you didn't. No, you said it fine. But in case anybody's searching and they're like, oh, how do you spell this stupid word? In which case spell check would probably help you anyway. But it's Millennial.
Yeah. Should we tell a funny story? Should we tell the funny story about my misunderstanding of the word millennial?
Oh, please do.
Because I want to tell the readers this, obviously, as you heard, Adam contacted me, asked to do an interview, and turned up and, said, we got this channel, it's called Millennial Falcon, because we are millennials. And like some kind of a donut, I thought that meant they were born on the year 2000. So I'm expecting two 21-year-olds to turn up and at my door in Leon Sea. And I thought, wow, this is really special. 21, how do they manage to do that? Brilliant.
We're so much more impressive then.
Yeah. And they turned up at my door. And my first impression was, well, maybe, it's hard sailing. A hard life.
A lot of time in the sun.
Oh, dear.
They lived in Australia.
Time in the sun.
The sun and the wrinkles.
And as time went on, and so I started to hear more about your careers, I think these numbers are just not fitting together.
It was when you said on the phone, to Adam when you had the conversation about do you want to come to Turkey, sail on the Kraken, that you said, well, you know what? For 21-year-olds, you guys are just on it. You know exactly what I've been trying to spruik for like however many years, and you're only 21. And Adam and I were on the other end of the phone going,
What?
okay.
Oh dear. But so that was a funny one, and of course I'm now fully educated in what a millennial really is. But also, guys, so where next? What's the plan? Where are you going?
I think for now we are going to use our ocean-going boat to cross some oceans. We from here we're planning to, with a few stops along the way, we're planning to head back across the Caribbean, across the Atlantic Ocean, and then because we seem to like ocean sailing that much, we're going to go a little further on in the year. So next April, we're then going to head back across the Atlantic again, west to east, and go up to Norway.
Are you?
Yes. So we have a few more ocean crossings in our
okay,
future.
Brilliant. Yeah, good. Well, it's good out there. It's kind of
Yes.
it's a special kind of a place. It's your own country. It's your own island. You know the rules you create are those that you have to live by, and sometimes despite the rules that you want to create, you realise, there's a few restrictions. And I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic time ahead of you. And thank you very much for coming on the Ocean Sailor podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Very much for having us.
Yes,
Anytime.
we've had a great chat. Thank you.
Well, there you are, Dick. What did you think of that? Did you find that interesting? I hope you did.
Well, I tell you what I did like. I like the fact that Adam said that he was honest enough to say about what makes, in his opinion, a blue water yacht. He said, "Look, I've had a lot. My experience is all anecdotal, or mostly anecdotal, not scientific. And of course, you were able to produce the science, in as much as the Kraken is an engineered boat, of course." And so that was good. And then I also found it quite interesting when Khiara was talking about a lot of people she's spoken to who have gone across the oceans in the sort of boats that we think are best not to go across oceans, i.e. bolt-on keels and twin rudders, etc., etc. And she said, but even they sort of put a caveat on it by saying, well, she slapped and banged and it was a bit scary at times, but we got there in the end. And you sort of think, well, hang on a minute. I think I'd rather get there every end. One day, perhaps I won't get there.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things I'd like to add into that, Dick. The first thing is, people, I heard it said a lot of times, they're designed to take all that pounding. But actually, it's the flexing that's created by that pounding that's the problem, because it causes micro cracking in the fibres of the layup of the GRP.
Right.
And so gradually over time, the boat is becoming weaker. But my main kind of thing is that, you're not supposed to be doing this as an endurance. You're supposed to be doing this for fun. And yes. I go out there sailing because it's a great place to be, and it's a good thing to do. And when I'm not going there to bloody well endure it.
No,
and so I think that's a factor that needs to come into play. And of course, the type of boat that you're going to go and do this in is key to your enjoyment. I mean,
yes.
And I don't just mean old production boat. I'm not going on about production boat, but it's any boat. I mean, I know, for example, you sailed on Gypsy Moth, which, although it was a very iconic boat, very famous boat, tremendous amount was achieved on that particular boat. You found it, I think, a bloody pig to sail, and it wasn't fun to sail. Am I right in that?
Yeah, no, that's very much the case. I think everyone who sailed on Gypsy Moth would agree with that. And of course, Chichester himself cursed the boat all the way to Sydney, where it was his first stop. He cursed Illingworth all the way out and Primrose all the way back. They were the two designers. He also had a big chunk of keel and rudder put on out in Australia, but she was still difficult to sail. Of course, and he had self-steering as well. But to hand steer, she was, as the as the captain or skipper, I should say, that I had with me, an army guy, he said steering Gypsy Moth is like trying to steer a supermarket trolley on ice. So it gives you some idea of what she was like. So yeah,
and of course, here you go. Chichester was doing that to be first.
Yes, indeed.
So there was a question, there was an issue for him of enduring it, proving
yes, very much.
that man against the sea and all of that whole good thing.
Yes.
It was a fantastic voyage, of course. But actually, all of the people we're talking about go out there because it's fun.
Yeah.
And the more you can load the dice in your favour to have fun, and by the way, for me, I'm just also going to say, and this is a point that we didn't really get onto, it's not just about being safe, but it's also about feeling safe.
Yes,
and,
of course.
And if you're frightened because you think your boat's going to break up, you can't have fun. I don't give a damn who says otherwise. Exhilarating when the boat is flying is one thing, but thinking, I wonder if this will hold together till I get to port, which is what Khiara was saying, is I think something entirely different.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So it was very interesting from that point of view, and as I said earlier, very interesting to talk to Adam and Khiara and find out their motivations, how they did it. I find them a very intrepid couple and very interesting. And I suppose, Dick, you and I have talked about the very lack of sailing material, of instructional sailing material that's available to people nowadays. But of course, here you go, social media is filling that gap in
very much,
and they are very much, I think, educating tremendously people into some of the realities. Because the thing that comes across, and I think you've mentioned it before, is, they're not dressing it up. They're not going, oh, wow, look, here we are in another. That's not, here we are in another, beautiful location. Some of it is very, and of course they are. But what they have included in what they've done is their disappointments and their trials and tribulations. And I think that's the valuable stuff to be listening to and understanding when you're thinking about going and doing this. Because it's not always a picnic.
No, I think that's very true. I mean, Adam made the point that when Khiara was ripping up the teak decking, he said, look, don't take up more than we can relay and cover because it might start raining. So she went ahead and ripped up a whole load, and then they couldn't reapply what they were reapplying, and it rained, and he wasn't very happy. That's
the deal.
She started crying. Yeah. But the point is, he said, look, the thing is, you have to keep the camera running. There's no point cutting out. There's no point in pretending that there aren't these pitfalls, obviously, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Anyway, I liked his phrase, actually. He said, it's about turning a frown upside down, which I thought was quite nice.
Yeah. Anyway, it was very good fun to do. Very interesting for me to do it. I enjoyed it.
Pity I was always saying I'd like to have met him, but there we are.
And of course, the other, so and I hope everybody enjoyed it as well. And just let everybody know we are going to try and get back to a much more regular broadcasting period. We did go quite a long time because we did just get overwhelmed. Really, at Kraken, I got overwhelmed at Kraken, as I've said before, with the all of the interest that was generated by the videos that we did interested in Kraken. But we're on that horse of riding it well, so we'll be able to get back to getting the podcasts out again. And of course, what we've just finished, Dick, is the January edition of Ocean Sailor. Sailor magazine, which is going out in just a couple of days now.
Yes.
Our third year. A lot in there.
Yeah,
we got a lot. It's been difficult though, Dick, hasn't it? Because we had to
push, isn't it?
We had to more or less go into the 1st of January edition straight after the December.
Yes.
Because of course half of December was taken up by Christmas holidays, and then you throw in a bit of COVID this and COVID that. To disrupt it's been difficult, but I think we've got a really good one out there, and you've done a very interesting story, I know, with Peter Firstbrook,
Yes.
who's big proponent of the issues that are coming about on climate change,
Yes.
as well as a lot more. Of course, I don't know if you've noticed this, Dick, but in the period of time we've been doing the podcast, in that period of time, there's less people that are climate deniers now than there
That's
was.
true enough. Yeah.
Do you reckon that?
I do. Yes, there's less and less. They're still out there, but I mean, oddly enough, Peter Firstbrook told me, and I think it's what's in the piece we carried with him, but he worked for many years, 25 years with the BBC, and I said to him, look, one of the things that worries me a little bit about the BBC, it never puts the counter argument, i.e., is global warming from natural causes? You don't hear that anymore. And he said, well, we did. We always used to do that, but we don't anymore because 98% of scientists say that it is down to man's activity, and only 2% say that it is not. He said, so therefore you can't counterbalance 98% with 2% because it's
disproportionate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It put us.
But I definitely think that there is much less climate denial since our good old mate Trump got kicked out of the White House.
Yes.
It seems to me that credibility of that whole argument, which, he proposed, didn't he, that it was all...
He pulled out of the Paris Agreement, didn't he?
It was all a myth, and it all... Yeah. But since he's gone, it seems that people have come back to... seeing some sense on climate change. I certainly hope people do, and I hope they take the action.
Yes, I think so.
There's a few other good. We got a few other good articles. I'd like the readers to particularly note that since they'll have seen that I put on a bit of weight during the videos of Millennial Falcon, but as you can see in the forthcoming issue, I wrote an article about keeping a log. I've managed to get myself a lot fitter now. I just there is a joke in that, but I'm not going to go any further. I don't want to ruin it.
Fair enough.
But so that was another interesting thing to do. Dick, in writing that article about keeping the necessity, and I believe it to be a necessity of keeping a log. I started to speak to quite a lot of people about whether people did keep logs. Right. That was all part of my research, and to my great surprise, over 50% said, "No, not really." Do you keep a log, Dick? When you're...
I do, even though, of course, my stuff's mostly coastal, with a few crossings of the North Sea and down Channel and stuff. But yes, I do keep a log, and especially in the Thames Estuary where the sandbanks change on a regular basis, and your charts may well be out of date. But you can't fault a log. There's nothing like taking a sounding if you're going over a sandbank, and you tell the state of the tide, what the range was, make a note of the sounding and what time of the tide during that tide you crossed it, so that another time when it's blowing hard and you think, can I get across there? You can look at the log and think, well, I got across there when it was half tide, and I had about a metre or so underneath me. I can maybe do it again. So I do find it useful.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I won't. There's no point me repeating everything that I've said in the article, but my logs cover a great deal of detail, deliberately so, so I can come back on watch myself primarily and get a nutshell immediately of what's been going on. But a lot of people keep very detailed written logs, which I don't do so much, about their experiences on the way. And I must say, I can understand why that is, because, you cover all these miles, you go to these various places, and it is really nice to turn back the pages and look at something you did, and you, I remember that then, and I remember that. So
yes,
I think there's more to it
than
just simply keeping a position.
I agree with that. And I do, being somebody who quite enjoys writing anyway, I do put quite a lot of detail in. I remember once we were going into a place in the north of France called St. Valery-sur-Somme, and we hadn't got a chart going in there. So I had my mate, I said, look, we'll make a chart as we go and take some measurements, take some bearings. make a note of it all, because when we come out, it'll be very useful. When we got in there, I looked at the chart. I said, "What's this? You've got?" He said, "It's a donkey." I said, "A donkey tied to a stake? What on earthly good is that going to be? Somebody may have moved it on the way back out." But so he took it quite seriously and quite literally. But it was actually very useful. And in fact, when we got in there, we bought one from the harbour master, small chartlet of the entrance. But that was good fun, and I, gave me a story.
It all helps.
Yeah,
because the other thing that we covered in that, it's quite interesting and helpful in a way that we hadn't broadcast these podcasts that I did with Adam and Khiara sooner than we actually did, because you'll notice I asked the question because it's been delayed. I was asking a question that has now been answered, because I asked Adam and Khiara if they'd had anybody trying to justify bolt-on keels and blade hung rudders or particular design aspects that I feel are a weakness on boats to cross oceans in, and in between when we recorded that and now, of course, Adam and Khiara have also done a podcast with which is called On the Wind with Andy Shell, where he has done exactly that and actually gone to far greater lengths, not to just simply justify bolt-on keels being acceptable, but to really put forward the kind of really, really very dangerous and very misleading information that because Andy hasn't seen himself or known somebody that's hit a container, that's not really something ever to worry about. And, but there's lots of other stuff that are in that. And I was really wound up about it when I read it. But I've spoken to other people since then, and there's a lot of people out there very irate about what they feel is the content of that and how it was managed as well. And I've now, and I'm again reiterating that, throwing down that gauntlet. And I believe that this subject needs to be covered in much greater depth, because I'm worried about people getting the wrong idea and going off on boats on the basis of somebody as experienced as Andy is. And to some extent, I think he should know better than to just fly in the face of information that's out there and be a denier of the dangers that do exist out there to sailing boats. Yeah. And I've said, and Dickie, you're going to have to be the ringmaster, as I've invited Andy to do a podcast with us.
Okay.
And I think the best way to do that would be for it to be a presidential debate type setup, where each person gets a certain amount of time to speak, and then the other person gets a time to speak without interruption from the other, because otherwise all you do is you just lose the microphone. You get halfway through what you're saying and bang, oh, hang on, it didn't suit whoever is running the podcast. And I don't want to do that. And if Andy does want to come on, I promise that we will give him plenty of forum and free time to state his case. But I do think it's something that seriously worries me.
That's good, yes.
And it's incensed people, as I said. Yeah. I've had lots of people really, really incensed over, not people to do with Kraken. Nothing to do with that. No, fair enough. Sailors out there,
Yes. Well, that would be good. Let's hope he picks up that gauntlet. Yeah.
Well, we'll soon see, know. But anyway, I hope the readers enjoy the edition that's gone out, or it's going out, I should say.
Yeah.
Next couple of days. It's
Happy
completed
New Year.
Now. It's off of our. It's
left the press.
Letterpress.
Hot off the press. Yes.
Oh, it's gone. Yeah, I think we changed those wordings a bit.
Yeah, that's true enough.
Yeah, I think the deliveries have gone out, as it was in the old Fleet Street days, Dick. What did you say? What was the phrase you must have used when an edition was finally finished?
It's gone off the stone.
It's what?
Gone off the stone.
Oh, well, there
As
you
it
go.
used to be set on a stone, a big
Yeah.
big
Oh,
stone.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Lithograph.
Off the stone. That was before web offset and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
That's during hot metal press. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But-
well, it's off of our stone and it's out
Yeah.
for people to
In-
pick
in the
up
ether.
and read it in the ether in a couple of days.
yeah, excellent. Well,
All right.
well, talking of Fleet Street brings me to a happy conclusion. Of course,
Oh no! Oh no!
well, we know the jury is out on Ghislaine Maxwell in the case over in America there, and of course her daddy Robert Maxwell was an old newspaper magnate who I had once interviewed briefly. He owned the Daily Mirror, and of course he tumbled off the back of his own motor yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named it after his daughter. Nobody quite knows what happens there. But the word in Fleet Street was, how come they found the body so quickly? And the answer was, they followed the line of half-eaten sharks.
Yeah, I think he did have a bit of a reputation, didn't
He was a bit of a lunch merchant, that's for sure. Yeah.
he? Anyway, okay.
All right.
Well, yes. Good night from me.
And ta-ta from me.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.